I want to talk about the $225,000 per speech that Hillary Clinton has been raking in. Um, that's not a small amount of money. Morning Joe, those of you who were listening or are in the chat room during the forum, you overheard me prepping up some video of Morning Joe when they were discussing Hillary Clinton's $225,000 per speech for 45 minutes. The couple is now, the Clintons are worth $100 million. But despite being worth $100 million, she was still giving speeches leading up to her declaration that she was going to run for president. Morning Joe and Mika and Willie Geist, or whatever his name is, they started unpacking how problematic this was, because this is Hillary Clinton intentionally doing things that's going to fuel her rivals, whether it be Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump. You know, she's doing these things leading so closely to the nomination, or to the declaration of her candidacy, that is completely detrimental to her candidacy, but still she did it. And if she's worth $100 million, what's passing up $225,000? What's passing up $1 million? You're worth $100 million. What's passing up $1 million so that you can make sure that you're not self-sabotaging your campaign? But she did not take that route. She decided to continue to give these speeches for organizations, these major banks, major corporations, Goldman Sachs, all of these, and I don't want to use the word establishment here, all of these corporations who would benefit the most from having access to a president. And in this interview on yesterday, where she was on Meet the Press, which, by the way, Bernie Sanders was on just before her, and they asked Bernie Sanders about reparations, but they did not ask Hillary Clinton about reparations. But we'll leave that. We'll discuss that when I come to the Ta-Nehisi Coates Strikes Back. On Meet the Press yesterday, she discussed that these speeches were not about these corporations wanting anything from her. They just liked her so much. They just liked what she had to say so much. They just loved her recounting stories of the Osama bin Laden raid, that they were willing to pay her $225,000 for 45 minutes. This is the thing that I don't. How can I say this? Because I'm contradicting myself in my own head right now. So people who say things like this simultaneously don't think some people are going to notice, and don't think some people, or don't care that other people are going to notice. This is what I mean. Hillary Clinton saying something like this on Meet the Press on yesterday, that Goldman Sachs giving her $225,000 for a speech, and they're giving it to her simply because they want to hear her speak, not because they want access to arguably the next president of the United States if Bernie Sanders doesn't have anything to say about it, right? She's saying something like this, and she really believes, or she has to believe, that a whole group of people are not going to think twice about it, and they're going to take her at her word. Those are her supporters, while simultaneously not really giving a damn that people like me, who see right through it, call her on a bull. So it's kind of like simultaneously, it's like, forget about any veracity, forget about any truthfulness, forget about the absurdity of the assertion that they want your story so bad that they're going to pay you $225,000 for a 45-minute speech, the same speech that they could download off of YouTube. When in reality, everyone knows that that type of money for 45 minutes is not about what you're going to say in front of the audience. It's about what you're going to talk about behind the scenes. It's all about access. This is why major media outlets, they get paid big amounts of money just so that their journalists can have access. Scratch that. Let me reverse that. So that people of interest could have access to their journalists, right? It's all about getting access to people who can forward your interests, either through policies like the president of the United States, or through public relations like journalists. So it's all about access. And to think that enough people aren't thinking such that you could get away with saying something as absurd as $225,000 for 45 minutes is not about access, but rather about your amazing public speaking ability is beyond disingenuous. But the sad reality of it is that she is proving me to be the fool. Hillary Clinton is proving people like me to be the fool because her supporters just don't care. They don't care enough to think about the absurdity of what she's saying. If Bernie Sanders comes around and after this election and after his term or whatever the results of the election is, and he comes around and tries to tell me that he was paid $500,000, $250,000 for a speech, and it was all because they liked what he had to say, I will call flag on the play. I don't care who you are. Barack Obama, great speaker, but who's paying him $225,000 just to hear him speak? It's about access. It is always about access, because how can you get the ear of someone who can influence your destiny or the destiny of your business? If you believe for a second that Hillary Clinton is going to be fighting more, let's not get it twisted. She may pass some legislation that's beneficial to some of the people, some of the time. But if you believe that she's going to be fighting more for the people, then she will be the people who are putting all this money to fund her campaigns. And not just fund her campaigns, but fund her lifestyle and paying for Chelsea's wedding, $1 million wedding. You know, this $100 million, if they came out of the White House as broke as they claim they did, then $100 million right now, that came from what, the last 15 years? How much is that every year? Just shy of $10 million every year? Well, okay, I'm not the math person, but you know what I mean. If you really believe that she is going to be beholden to the people more so than she's going to be beholden to the people who are giving her money and the organizations that are giving her money, I don't know how you can legitimately justify that to yourself. And I want to add, and I'm not saying this is why you should vote for Bernie, right? I'm not going to use my airways to tell you this is why you should vote for Bernie. I'm going to use my airways to tell you this is what good progressivism is. This is what's going to be best for America. And you make the decision of which candidate is going to be best for America, right? But if you believe that this means that Hillary Clinton is going to work harder for you than she is Goldman Sachs, then I really have to question your grasp on reality. $225,000 for 45 minutes for anything means that you're purchased. You're bought. You're purchased. Your voice, and this is indicative of the transition. Now, I don't, part of me really does not believe that they've been like this. I'll tell you why I believe this. I'm going to play this clip by Elizabeth Warren. I don't really believe that they've been like this. Hillary has been like this all the time. Here's Elizabeth Warren, and you'll understand why.
He said, Professor Warren, we've got to stop that awful bill, referring to this bankruptcy bill that's sponsored by the credit card companies. So I left. She went back to Washington, and I heard later from someone who was a White House staffer that there were skid marks in the hallways when Mrs. Clinton got back as people reversed direction on that bankruptcy bill. And in her autobiography, Mrs. Clinton took credit for that veto, and she rightly should. She turned around a whole administration on the subject of bankruptcy. She got it.
And then?
One of the first bills that came up after she was Senator Clinton was the bankruptcy bill.
And?
She voted in favor of it.
Why?
As Senator Clinton, the pressures are very different. It's a well-financed industry. A lot of people don't realize that the industry that gave the most money to Washington over the past few years was not the oil industry, was not pharmaceuticals. It was consumer credit products. Those are the people, the credit card companies have been giving money, and they have influence.
And Mrs. Clinton was one of them, as senator.
She has taken money from the groups, and more to the point, she worries about them as a constituency.
Right there. She worries about them as a constituency. I don't, just based off this conversation, right? I don't believe that Hillary Clinton started off as a corporate shill. I do believe that the longer you stay in Washington and the more your position is valuable to people who can buy you out, the longer you have to fight back against the temptation of taking the money from the lobbyists, you know, for the most part, all across the board legal. The longer you have to fight against the pressures. And I think somewhere along the line, they just completely caved in and decided we got to get paid. I think that's ultimately what they decided. They needed to get paid. Maybe they legitimate now I'm not talking about Bill Clinton and everything he did while he was in the White House, right? I'm not talking about Hillary Clinton and her super predator speech, right? I know that they had problems while they were in the White House. Absolutely had problems while they're in the White House. But on just this one particular issue, you see where she made a 180-degree about face from what she previously stated was important to her, and ultimately exposed most of America to draconian style bankruptcy rules that really has taken the benefit or the purpose of bankruptcy away, right? So somewhere along the line, they completely lost their way. And I just don't, and it's not even so much about them. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not even about Hillary. It's really about what she's doing to her followers, what she's doing to progressivism, and the fact that so many people can absolutely turn away from the reality that two major things. Number one, that the best way forward for a leader, the best trait that we should look for in a leader is someone who's only going to fight for the things that we know we can get the Republicans to work on, or to fight for the easy things, to fight for the things that aren't necessarily our values, but just for the sake of getting something done. That's what we want in a leader. When has that ever been a trait of a true leader? But now this is emerging as a venerated value that we should look for in a presidential candidate. That to me is disgusting. That's one of the number one things that bothers me about this candidacy. It's not Hillary Clinton. It's the fact that she has convinced her people that we should not try to change anything, that we should go for the status quo. That's number one that bothers me. Number two that bothers me is the fact that her followers, she's convincing them to just turn away from not only things that are progressive, but things that are common sense. That if you accept the majority of your money from Wall Street, that you are going to be holding to Wall Street. 1 + 1 = 2. If this was a Republican running that has accepted this much money from Wall Street, Hillary Clinton herself would call them on it and say, how are you going to represent the people when you've taken all this money from Wall Street? But again, it's not about her. It's about the fact that she has convinced right now a good majority of left-leaning Americans that this is somehow a progressive value and that she is somehow not going to be beholden to Republicans. All right, let me shift gears and talk about